Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Did you miss us? It took me 2 years to talk Dr. Thomas into bringing this concert back online, and after intense pressure, he broke down and did it. I am John Lowe, for those who might be new to this concert. Sean Thomas, the director of music here at Prince of Peace at the Prince of Peace organ. Seth Bott over here. I actually lived in Gainesville for 16 years, and 2 years ago relocated to Birmingham, Alabama. So our concert took a year off while I got settled. But I'm so glad that we're able to do this, and so glad that you're all here. You have just been listening to the music of Sigurd Karg Ehlert, the German composer. Karg Ehlert actually in his time was really regarded kind of as he was copycatting other composers, but in music history he is now regarded as a very important composer in that period, and so we're thrilled to open up with that piece, originally written for brass and organ and rearranged for this concert. Just like everything you'll hear today, some of this is organ and orchestra, some of it's for 2 organs or 1 organ that we split into 3 organs, so you'll hear a lot of different music from different styles arranged in a little different way. We moved to the music of Mozart. This is one of his church sonatas written for organ, small organ, and 2 violins and cello, and this particular one also added the organ. If you've never been to the cathedral in Salzburg, there are 5 organs in that church. You walk down to the center of the church, and on each of the 4 corners, there's an organ in each of those, and then in the back is a very large organ. And so that's why we have an extra organ in this piece, because they had plenty to choose from. So this is the Church Sonata by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. It's always helpful when you know what the program is before you stand up and talk about it. As part of this program, over the years, and I'll tell you a little bit later how this all got started about 20 years ago, but we always tried to not only do music with either the two or the three of us, but also show off some of the individual talents of our various players. So Dr. Thomas, if you'll turn your attention to the main organ here at the Prince of Peace, is going to do a very lovely set of variations on the hymn, The Solid Rock. Thank you, Sean. That piece by Azrael Davis, an African-American composer, and you could hear, I'm sure, such jazz styles going through the entire piece. And Sean, we thank you. Largo and this church and this community are very fortunate to have you in their midst, so very, very appreciative. This next selection, arranged originally for one organ and two players, and using four hands and 4 feet. I decided that I just didn't want all of us crammed on one organ bench, so I arranged it for 3 organs. It might have been a little unseemly to look at, too. But this piece, The Emerald Isle, by organist Charles Callahan, and it'll be in a very familiar tune, but I invite you to withhold yelling out the name of it when you first hear it. I'll ask you afterwards, and the first person gets free cookies at the reception. Don't tell them they're already free. Here is The Emerald Isle by Charles Callahan. since you all know what it is and you all get free cookies, you don't have to yell it out. Oh, Danny Boy, probably one of the most popular tunes of its time. And on we go to the tune that started it all. This concert has been going on now since 2005 when I was in Ocala, Florida, and then took it to Gainesville from there. And then at that point, we started doing it both here and in Gainesville. And the piece that we played every year is this piece by Johann Sebastian Bach. The first three notes are probably the most famous three notes in all of music history. I did a concert a number of years ago, and I was playing another piece. And I said all of that, and I said, but it doesn't matter in the slightest, because I'm not playing that piece today. Today, we are playing that piece. Thank you very much, so much for your enthusiastic support this afternoon. The next couple of short pieces come from the famous theater organ. Theater. Friends tried to tell me that's theater. I told them, I won't tell you what I told them. Theater organ. Ethel Smith, for those who remember Ethel Smith, she was the one that was in the movie where she played Tico Tico on the Hammond organ in 4-inch high heels. It was just fabulous. These are a couple of her arrangements. And so the organ here is a pipe organ with a little bit of extra electric kind of reinforcement. These organs here are all completely digital. They are electronic. The sounds that you hear have been sampled from all over the world. They take microphones and record the pipes, and then they use computer technology to turn that into digital sounds and create instruments for churches that may not have room or funds to have a full pipe organ. So, and it is very convenient for us because we're able to bring these instruments in and combine them with the other instrument. And so part of these instruments, though, we can load sounds into the instrument in addition to what's already there. And so some of the sounds you'll hear are extra sounds that we put in for this occasion. So here is Autumn Leaves and Chicago. play ball. Dr. Thomas is going to come say a couple of words while we have just a brief break and our wonderful festival choir gets into place for the next portion of our program.
So at this time, we have a brief intermission, and it's really just for the choir to get in place and for us to pass the baskets. If you've been to our concerts before, you know we are fully self-supporting. We don't receive funds from the church budget, so it's your generosity that funds our series, that allows us to have these beautiful instruments and bring in these excellent performers like Seth and John. So as the ushers come forward, please be generous. And also just a quick announcement, in the insert in your program, there's a list of upcoming organ recitals in the season of Lent on Tuesdays at noon throughout our area. And coincidentally, I don't know why I said yes to this, but I'm playing the first one up at St. Alfred's in Palm Harbor. So you might hear the solid rock variations. If you like that piece, come to Palm Harbor and hear it again in just a couple weeks. So we're going to take just a few minutes, stretch your legs. The ushers will come forward, and thank you so much. And also, please join us under the portico. If the wind doesn't blow everything away, we'll have cookies and just some light snacks for you out there. So thank you.
As we continue on with the concert this afternoon, a few words about our next selection. This concert was also born out of the idea that a piece like the one we're about to do could be a reality. In the great cathedrals in Paris, and many of you saw on Palm Sunday about 6 years ago when our beloved Notre Dame caught fire but has recently reopened. But in that very cathedral, the great organist Louis Vierne wrote a piece of music, and it was composed for choir and two organs. So in the French cathedrals, the large organ is in the back of the church, and then at the front of the church is another organ, and the choir sings from there. And so you have, and in French churches, it is highly competitive to become what is called the titular organist, one of the main organists. And these churches will often have more than one. They play the large organ in the back. And then at the front, you have the choir organist, which is also very, very important position, but pales in comparison to the titular organist, as they say. However, all that aside, today's piece is by Vierne's teacher, Charles-Marie Widor. And Widor was at the Church of Saint-Sulpice, but a similar situation. Widor played the large organ in the back. And so what you're going to hear, for those who have not heard this music, what you're going to hear is the large organ, when you hear it, will be very large and full. When the choir sings, the large organ either doesn't play, or it just plays short chords in between to accentuate what's going on, so you can still hear what's going on over here. And so what you'll see in the program, this is the Mass. This Mass was actually for two choirs and two organs, by Charles-Marie Widor, and there are 1, 2, 3. There are 5 movements. If you will withhold your applause until the end, and then you just applaud with wild abandon. Because I think you're going to really like it if you've not heard this. So today, the part of the titular organist will be played by yours truly, and the very important, yet not titular, will be played by Dr. Seth Pott. And then the wonderful festival choir here at Prince of Peace, Dr. Sean Thomas, will conduct the choir. So I really hope if you haven't heard this, or if you have, that you'll once again enjoy this marvelous music from the French churches and the great history that comes behind it. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. While the choir is going to come back out and take their seats so that you don't see their hair blowing forward on the back of their head during the louder selections. And while our choir organist, Dr. Seth Bott, is still over at the organ, he's going to play us a great tune. Some of you may not know this, but and it may be in his biography, but Seth is a somewhat regular performer at the Tabernacle on Temple Square, which was formerly known as the Mormon Tabernacle, and plays the massive instruments there on a fairly regular basis. And so we are thrilled that he has come to us to play today. And this piece he's playing is written by Richard Elliott, who is one of the full-time Tabernacle organists. And it's based on a great number of Christmas tunes, a little Christmas in February for you. And after he's done, we'll have a poll and see how many Christmas tunes you counted in this piece of music. So here is Seth Bott. Anybody have any idea how many tunes were included in there? I have no idea. I was hoping you'd tell me. Yes. Thank you, Seth. That's always a fun time to hear a little bit of holiday outside of the holidays. Our next selection, we go back to the music of Charles Callahan. Again, this was written for one organ and two players, and it's based on the hymn tune, Softly and Tenderly, Jesus is Calling. This next selection might not immediately be recognizable to you by the title. About 4 bars in, you will figure it out, especially if you watched Tom and Jerry cartoons as a child. I don't think the composer of this piece ever thought in his lifetime that music would be accompanying a large cat chasing around a mouse with a meat cleaver. And yet we still watched it as children. As we start to wind it down here for another year of the 3-organ spectacular, this piece has also been played on every concert since the beginning. Started this concert in Ocala 20 years ago, and then have continued it on. We started with Pete Kinsey from Inverness, who provided our instruments, and when Pete retired, Central Music in Clearwater, just right up the road, were able to step in and provide our instruments today and 2 years ago. And so we're very grateful to them for providing this. They bring these in, they set them all up with all these speakers back here and lots of wiring and get it all set to play in this room. So we're very fortunate that we have someone in the area who is willing to provide that for us. And so thank you to Central Music. Here is The Stars and Stripes Forever. Well, there it is, almost. I thank you to the lovely Michelle Klima Thomas, the wife of our own Dr. Thomas, playing the flute. Immediately following this concert, we will have a little light refreshments, some cookies out, as Dr. Thomas calls it, portico. I call it the back porch, out the doors of the rear of the church, but you should see the cookies when you go out. And then we will love to visit with you for just a brief bit, but not too long, because the Thomas's in-laws will be whisking us off to a swanky dinner in Dunedin later on. But until they take us away, we will love to visit with you and to say hello and thank you for being here. This has been a lot of fun, and we are looking forward to me pressing Dr. Thomas into doing this again next year. 200 people can't be wrong. This is we've ended our concert with this particular selection for a number of years, just because it kind of sums up the whole thing. The famous Peter Wilhowsky, who arranged the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and this is our closer. And we do hope that you'll stay safe, stay well, and be kind to each other.